Welcome to FitBody Lifestyle, the show where we dive deep into the world of fitness, health, business, relationships, and the art of living a balanced life. I'm Jamie.
And I'm Greg, and we're here to give you the benefit of our experiences in the fitness and bodybuilding industry, the corporate world, running a business, personal development, and building healthy relationships.
Whether you're sweating it out in the gym, hustling in your business, or seeking balance in your everyday life, you're in the right place.
So lace up those sneakers and grab that water bottle, and let's get ready to transform our minds, our bodies, and our lives.
Welcome back to another episode of FitBody Lifestyle, where, we argue about who's doing the intro right up to the very last minute. Welcome.
I would not call it an argument. I'd call it just a healthy debate.
Okay. And I lost, obviously. So anyway, I'm super happy to be here. We're doing our part 2 of falling off the, what did we say, cliff? Without your HRT parachute.
There you go.
Which, I hope so many people are listening and taking this to heart, because I feel like we have Lemus here with us again. And, just not, had we known then what we knew now, like how different our experiences might have been. And even with knowing as much as we have known. So that
still happens.
Just
like, whoa.
Yeah. So I'm excited to continue to share this with you. And of course, I'm here with my handsome
Well, let's not go that far.
co-host. So Ann, let's start out with your check-in word for this episode.
My check-in word for this episode. Inspired.
Nice.
Inspired.
Yes, I'm very inspired too by this. And then if people didn't hear the first episode, just a quick introduction so people know who you are and what you do and why we're here talking about
Lemus.
hormones.
I'm a coach with FitBody Fusion. I am a master's athlete and full menopause. So that's kind of my niche. We'll just send it there. So you can find me through the FitBody website. But yes, we're talking about all things hormonal and peri and post menopause and all the fun things that go with that.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked through your journey in our first episode. So if you didn't hear that episode, go back, listen to it, because I think there's a lot of really great nuggets, and then also kind of what other people may be experiencing or thinking about. And now we're going to talk a little bit more about, because we talked a lot about blood work and how important that is to, first of all, even if before you're having any kind of experience, to get your baseline.
Have a baseline. Yes, have a baseline.
And then, kind of delving a little bit, and we're going to delve a little bit deeper into that now. So, we ended talking about that there are ranges, and the ranges are, so tell us a little bit about, when people do, first of all, get a copy of your results of your blood work, or,
sure.
Yeah. So starting there. And then,
first and foremost, make sure you have all the right labs. We touched on that a little bit in the last episode, but, you can't go to your doctor and say, I need a full panel of labs, because that can mean different things. That's the Grand Canyon, right? You have no idea what you're going to get. And so kind of having like a list, and I provide it to my clients, like, here's the things I would really like to see. I would like to get eyes on so that it's spelled out. But they're kind of basic. Full thyroid panel. What's a full thyroid panel as opposed to just a TSH? We can dig into some of that. But like full thyroid, full hormone, and then all the normals like CBC with diff and comp metabolic. But I also, really important ones that I like to see also, obviously fasted glucose, A1C, insulin, fasted insulin. That's really a big one. We can kind of dig into why that one's important. But just getting all of those things, baseline cortisol, really, really important. TPO, we talked about that a little bit, kind of a marker for Hashis and if there's anything going on there. So all of those are really good markers. I'm also a really big fan of what's called a CRP, or a C-reactive protein, because it's a really good indication of inflammation. And inflammation is a whole nother wrap. We could do a whole segment on just inflammation and all the things that does to your body. But those are kind of the ones I like to see. And then kind of what we were going to talk about on this one, because Greg had made a appointment, like, when a doctor says, oh, you're in range, there's a massive difference between medically in range and optimal, and like optimal range, right? Or ideal ranges for anyone, I would say. But when you're looking at a medical range, it's taking the average of the general population, right? Or what's considered in range for the general population. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be in the middle of the pile of the general population. No, thank you. I would like to be where the top 5% are sitting, somewhere around there, which is kind of more those optimal ranges.
Right. But that's not standard in most medical environments.
No, in most medical environments, you're going to get the medical range, right? And
you could be hanging on by a thread.
You could be hanging,
and they're
going
to tell you you're fine.
Yes, yeah. I mean, and I think when I try and explain to people, like, medical ranges are basically disease, right? Like, you can be in range. A perfect example is your A1C, right? Your A1C can be climbing. You're fine until it hits 6, and then you get that label. You're type 2 diabetic. So it's one click on the radar, right? And it's been going that direction for a while. It's like your gas gauge. You can watch it go down, and you're
Right.
heading.
Are you going to wait till you're completely on E, and
right?
then
You're
what do you
heading
do?
towards empty. Are you going to get gas, or are you going to wait until you're broken down on the side of the road? Like, it's a gauge. And so I tell people, even though it says you're medically in range, it just means you're not diagnosed with an illness at this point. It's not considered in a range that you have a disease or an illness.
Yet.
That's not yet. You don't want to be there. You kind of want to be on the other end of things. And so optimal ranges are really, really important. And I think testosterone, when we were talking about women's testosterone, I think huge example, right? I think the range for women's testosterone is something absurd, like 3 to 30 or something. If your testosterone is at 3, you're going to feel like trash. That's not.
If your testosterone's at a 5 or 7, even, you're probably gonna
Exactly.
feel like trash, yeah.
And that's what we can talk about, right? Like, at what point, I have some clients, theirs is like 12, but their free testosterone's great. They feel fine. That's fine, right? And we can dig even more of that.
Well, and I think the one thing that I would say with this that I want to couch all of our discussion with about optimal range is that optimal range has a variability to it,
Right.
because there are optimal ranges that the people who are looking at labs that know what they're looking at can kind of give you a gauge for, but they really come down as optimally for you.
Yes.
And
How do you
and
feel?
that's right. And that's why that clinical correlation of your symptoms. So, hey, you have testosterone, but you are not manifesting any of the symptoms that go with low testosterone. So that doesn't mean it doesn't need to be addressed. It means it just need to be watched, because you may be optimal for you, and this test was on a snapshot of time. Are there other factors that influence the labs on that day that are worth discussing? But it just, there's medical, there's optimal, and then
Personal.
optimal, and then
Personal.
personal,
And there's
really,
personal.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I think maybe we combine them and say personally optimal is what's
Yeah.
right for you.
Yeah.
Hey, we
And-
just coined a new phrase.
And in a perfect world, how cool would it be if we literally had consistent labs for like the last 10 years?
Yeah.
Because one thing I've gotten really good at for me personally is knowing where I feel my best, right? Like, and so I'll ask people, like, when did you feel your best? And if they say, 5 years ago, do you have labs from 5 years ago? I would love to see those labs. And I wish I had them on myself, because now that I'm so tuned into my own body, I know where I feel my best, where I feel my best, where my testosterone is, where my estrogen is. I know what feels best for me. And everyone's different, right? But it would be so cool to be like, God, I felt amazing when I was 40. Sure wish I had full labs of that, so I could go, yeah, look what my levels were then. Let's work on getting me back there.
Right.
Right.
And the other thing I heard you talking about that people really want to watch is the trends.
Yep.
So
Yes.
it's like, where am I? What's optimal for me? And then how am I trending?
Yes.
So like if you're not continuing to monitor, that's where, and especially if you're someone who is perimenopause and or in menopause, especially perimenopause, where things are a little bit more erratic, a lot more erratic.
It could change from month to month.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you're looking at the trends, and then even like once you get into menopause, like you had talked about in the first episode, now we're kind of stable because everything's pretty much where it's
out, yeah.
tanked out. It's where it's going to be, so it's a little easier to manage. And yet, if you don't know what's optimal for you, or if you're not paying attention to where you're trending, then you can't then respond.
Right. What are you striving for? What's the numbers you're striving for once you are truly in menopause, if you don't know where you feel your best?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, knowledge, like having the information is number one.
Yes,
So-
for sure. Yeah, the more information, the better. That's why I'm such a big fan of labs and pulling them frequently, especially because, they've gotten much more cost effective. You can do cash pay labs that are not crazy expensive. So why not know? Like, I want to know exactly where I'm at. And if I do start feeling off, I know it's a simple lab test to go, I feel like maybe something's off, and I'm usually right. You can pull it and go, oh yeah, there, sure enough, right? So I think a big piece of it is getting the wellness journal, being really, really aware of what are you feeling, and getting out of that mindset of like, it's in your head, and you're not a hypochondriac, but when you're by paying attention to your health doesn't make you a hypochondriac, or being like, something feels off, something's weird, right? Like, trust yourself, like, learn to trust yourself and listen to your body.
Right. Don't just go in, have labs. The doctor says, oh, everything look good, and you walk out, even though you don't feel right at that point. Then being able to look at it yourself and have at least a general knowledge to ask more questions is an important thing. I wanted to kind of dive into, because you had mentioned a couple of different aspects that we want tested. So let's talk thyroid, because that was one of the first ones, because I know oftentimes doctors are wanting to just test TSH.
Yes.
Why is a full panel important? What's in there?
Yeah. So yes, I always also with clients, make sure it's a full thyroid panel, meaning TSH, T4, T3, free T3, and a TPO. So biggest important thing is there at TSH, it's just telling you the level of your thyroid stimulating hormone in your body. And again, that medical range is crazy too. Like, it's crazy. What's optimal and what's at the top end of medical range is insane to me. But that's neither here nor there. But but really, what's important at the end of the day is T3, free T3, and we can go down a whole road of that. But that's kind of like
the end product.
That's the end product, right? So your TSH can be fine, and your free T3 can be in the tank, and you're going to feel like garbage. So if you're feeling like garbage, your hair is falling out, you're tired all the time, your skin is dry, you're having all the symptoms, and a doctor runs a TSH and is like, no, it's at 4, it's in range, you're fine. As we know, 4 is not great, but it's 4, it's fine. Do you feel fine? No. Right. So let's get to the bottom of why, right?
And you're not dropping weight. You're at a calorie deficit. So so everybody knows, because I'm the acronym police. So TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. And I when you think about that word, it is a hormone. It's a hormone. But it is a thyroid stimulant. It's released by the pituitary.
Correct.
It then sends a signal to your thyroid to release T4 and a a little bit of T3, right?
No,
T4 that's converted.
T4 is unusable.
That's right.
Your body can't use it.
So like the raw materials.
Yeah, but the fact is that just running TSH just tells you, okay, my body's releasing the signal, but if it's not resulting in the actual hormone that has the causal effect in my body, then something's missing. So I'm great. It's
and reverse T3, you don't want to be converting backwards
either.
Right. So
exactly. And what are the things that cause that? I mean, is your cortisol through the roof, and that's why your body's trying to slow you down? And all the pieces fit. It's like the engine of a car, right? Like, everything has to kind of work together in the cog. And if you don't know what your pieces are, like, as you know, I would say, you've got some nice jumper cables. So what? Would you buy a car based on because it comes with good jumper cables? Mm-hmm. Like, no. So you kind of need to know more information. So thyroid's a big one, and then that last piece is that TPO, which
thyroid peroxidase.
Rule out, find out.
Yes, it's basically the marker to tell you if you're developing antibodies for potential Hashimoto's. So.
And if you catch that early, we talked about this a little bit, like if you even if you're not full-blown Hashimoto's, like if you don't have a full-blown autoimmune, yet you're trending that way, or you're seeing, you can change some simple things, dietary things.
Drastically improve your outcome. Because the perfect example of a really frustrating thing for me is just based on, it's not the doctor's fault. They're doing what they know to do, but they won't diagnose you as Hashis until that TPO number is so high. Either your TPO number is so high that they can say, it's Hashis. I think it has to be over 200, which is an insane number, I think. Or your TSH has gotten so high that they can prove it's already destroying your thyroid.
And by then the damage
it's destroying
is done.
Your thyroid, right? Like, if you can see those numbers going up and you can get them suppressed before it starts attacking your thyroid, It's not a death sentence. It doesn't mean you have full-blown Hashis. It doesn't mean you need to go on thyroid medication because it hasn't destroyed your thyroid yet. So
And I would
that's
say this
what
too,
you
and I'm
wanna
sorry. Yeah,
catch.
we want to, we obviously we want to prevent that.
Absolutely.
And okay, if you have Hashimoto's, there is a treatment protocol for this. It's not a death sentence.
No.
Okay, you have to if your thyroid is. I mean, Joanna was on here, and her thyroid had to be removed as part of her protocol. But so she takes thyroid medication. The question is I know a lot of people, and I'm myself included. I don't want to take a bunch of medications, right? But yet I'll take a ton of supplements, and at the end of the day, like what is the difference if I'm taking something that makes me feel better? Okay, I don't want to be on testosterone replacement, but if I need to be to help me feel better, then why wouldn't I do that?
Right.
Thyroid's the same way. So yeah, no, it's not ideal that you take that, but if your body chemistry is such that you need that, or excuse me, that you'll benefit from it.
Yes.
So need is, I don't want to overuse that word, but I do think as we talk about being personally optimal here, if there's a hormone that replacing it will help you feel more personally optimized, then why
Absolutely.
would you not want to do that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, thyroid medication for me was a huge game changer. Again, like I didn't realize how I felt until I felt better. And then you're like, oh, this is crazy.
It's
And now,
it's not just feeling better though, right? You're also keeping other things from going. Because
Oh,
like we talked
absolutely.
about the interconnection of
they
all the different
all
hormones.
work
When something
together.
right.
Yes. Yeah, it all works together. You need to keep everything in range. And yeah, I think that's why I kind of like the functional space a little bit, because it does look at the body as a whole, right? And how all of everything works together synergistically. You're not just like, oh, well, let's treat this or let's just treat that. Like, no, we kind of need to look at the whole picture, right? And how do all these pieces fit together, right? Like you can't just say, oh, your cortisol's high and that's your problem. Like it's all of these other things combined.
Yeah.
Like you need to get everything in balance. So thyroid, yes, big one is making sure you get all the markers for thyroid. And then obviously comp metabolic is important. It has a lot of information in there, but the biggest one in there is it gives you your fasted glucose. So that's part of that comp metabolic panel. Most doctors will run that comp metabolic, and then the CBC with DIF that gives you all of your blood markers. That one's really important. And then full hormone panel.
Well, before you go off of that one, I did want to talk a little bit about with when you are going in for a blood test, are there recommendations you make in terms of food, water the day prior, training the day prior, some of those things?
Yes.
Because I know when we talk about morning glucose and how it's
Yes.
affected. So what kinds of things do you prepare people with before so that they're doing it properly?
Doing it properly. So, and people understanding what things it's going to impact if they don't do it right. Like Greg, don't go out and eat a big cheeseburger and a bunch of fries before you go do your
Damn, I
labs
can't
next
believe
week.
you're diving me out. Yeah.
Busted.
Like not
Well,
a
we
great
can give
plan.
people the context of that. Is that I had a blood test coming up the next day, and I ate like my friend
Smash
Ann
burger.
Lemus would say this. I ate like an asshole.
I was about to say an
Okay,
a-hole, 'cause
I
I
ate
was
like an
doing- yes,
asshole.
yes.
We'll just say asshole. You can bleep it, whatever. I ate a meal that was at night, not to mention, that was just laden with cholesterol and just unhealthy fats,
Saturated fats.
But a bunch, just it was bad. It was a bunch
Carbohydrates,
of
fries,
cheese,
All
fries,
of it.
everything. The whole thing. It was a football Sunday.
But did you have a shake too?
I had a shake as well, yes. So yeah, so blood glucose was
Not good.
it was not a good day for my
I was out of
labs.
town, when the
Yeah.
cat's away, the
Yeah.
mice will play.
Right.
It was not a good day, and I had and of course,
And you know
this was
better.
well, yeah, I do, but I didn't know that the doctor was running a full lipid panel, and so I got to see the particle size, which was, I mean, I'm surprised he didn't call. And luckily, when I talked to him, he said, "You know what? Relax. You're okay. This was a one-off with your," because and again, you talk about lab history, is that my prior labs were just, there's no way that I had that amount of change in that amount of time unless it was diet related.
Right.
And so it was easy to identify, but now what I missed in that opportunity, and this is why I'm glad we're going into some of the things to do before your lab so you get a proper baseline, is you don't want to you don't want to clean everything up like the week before, so you're not getting a true baseline. But you also don't want to eat like an
Sabotage
asshole,
yourself
right?
the night before.
Have an unusually,
Right.
yeah.
What great correlational data, though, right? Like I always tell people, like food, it can be poison or medicine, and you get to choose. Talk about a perfect example of, yes, this is the example of food being poison. Look at my
That's why he did it. He was just testing the theory.
I
just wanted
was
data.
just making and then of course I have the other thing that we've talked about before is I went into the emergency room for something I can't remember what it was, and so we left. We came. Do you remember what? I don't.
You were having it was when you were going to have surgery, and
That's right.
they were gonna run an EKG.
That's right. So I went in. Well, it wasn't the EKG. It was a blood work. So I go in for blood work prior to a surgery, and I get home and we're there for an hour or so, and I get a call, and it was a neurologist from the hospital. And he said, "Greg, you need to call an ambulance. You need to come back to the hospital right now." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Your calcium is off the chain. You are at high risk for heart attack." And I said, "Really?" Because I feel fine. And by the way, Doc, and Jamie's looking at my vitamin C because I had been fighting off an illness,
and I had been fighting him on not taking.
I was pumping in the vitamin C, which in and of itself was okay, but not when it's laden with calcium as a stabilizer for that to make it more buffered. And so, I buffered my vitamin C. I also drove my calcium levels up out the roof. So the doctor called me, rightfully so. But this is why through my experience, I can emphasize that labs always have a context, and they are a snapshot in time for that moment. And the two stories that I just relayed about me being an idiot are learn from me being an idiot. As the saying goes, a smart man learns from their own mistakes, but a wise man learns from the mistakes of others. So I'm disclosing my mistakes, which are very helpful in this case study that we did about having food and then seeing how that affected my lipid profile. It was a wonderful science experiment.
Yeah, thanks for doing that.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, but I do think one other lesson comes from that, which is if you do have a value, don't panic.
Right.
Correct.
So I definitely want to go back to to preparing to have the blood work done, and at the same time, and I'm sure you've had this happen before, people will get their results and start Googling and start freaking out.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and sometimes I'll get labs back, and I'll be like, "Have you been sick recently?" Again, do not go get your labs done if you've just gotten over COVID, RSV, flu A, you're inflamed, you've been sick. Your labs are going to be atrocious. Everything's going to be off. And you're going to think you're really sick. Like, no, your body was in crisis, and that's what your labs are showing.
Right. Yeah, it's still working on homeostasis. Yeah,
for sure.
Okay, so back to. So what are we doing? So we're not eating smash burger the night before labs.
Eat smash burger the night before. And it does, most of those labs will tell you to fast for at least 10 hours. I tell people, eat reasonably. Don't flood your body with high amounts of carbohydrates or sugar the night before. Don't drink alcohol the night before. Big one, make sure you stay really hydrated. I think there's a couple of things on labs that always come back off. And
creatinine and bunting, yeah.
Creatinine and bun come back screwy, and it's usually dehydration is causing that, because people think I'm fasting, so they start fasting, eat dinner early, and then they forget to drink water, or they forget to pound water on the way to the lab.
Fasted does not mean water free.
Correct.
Okay, so let's if we can clear up one thing in this episode, if fasted, it does not mean without water.
Correct.
It does mean without caffeine.
Correct.
So coffee, although coffee is primarily water, right? You do not want to drink caffeine before your labs, and take into consideration this. And we've had this experience where, and at the bottom of your labs, you can see at the time of the draw.
Correct.
And this is where the wellness journal can come into big help for you, is how much water did you consume prior to your labs? If you have a lab appointment for 8:30, you go in for the labs, and oh gosh, Jenny and Joe are out, so we're down to one phlebotomist, and they're not able to take your labs. So I went at 8:30, but I'm not taking my labs till 10 or 10:30. And you go 8:30 to 10:30 without drinking, even though you hydrated prior to 8:30, it's going to affect your levels.
Yeah. And I'm that, I need my latte first thing in the morning. I don't function without caffeine. So pounding water when I've had nothing else is torture for me. But I try and get 40 ounces of water in before labs, because my bun creatinine was so off for so long. They sent me to a kidney specialist. He's like, "There's nothing wrong with you." I'm like, I was dehydrated, I think, a lot back in the day. Same thing. It
can also affect your EGFR too.
Yes.
Which is your kidney filtration.
For sure.
When we already have typically a little bit higher levels when we have a little bit more muscle and
True.
things like that too. So
sure.
then it's really important. I mean,
Yeah.
the importance of water can't stress enough.
Sleep, getting a good night's sleep. I know sometimes that's hard for people because sometimes you're having labs because you can't sleep, but having a good night's sleep, especially I love seeing morning cortisol, and that's another big one for people that I have to tell people, do not make an appointment to get your labs done because it's very, very hard to get that first 7:30 appointment at a LabCorp. I'm like, be at the door when they open and be the first walk in, because if you're used to getting up you're usually up at 5:30 or 6 in the morning, most people are, and you don't get this lab drawn until 9:30 or 10, it's not a morning cortisol reading. It's not going to give us a true reading of where morning cortisol is. It has to be first thing in the morning. I had a girl, a doctor, believe it or not, she's a doctor of mine. She went and did her labs. She was fasted, but she did drink coffee. Okay, do you know what that does to your cortisol? I'm like,
Right.
good grief.
Right.
Yeah, not good. You can't have caffeine.
Right. That is not going to be accurate.
That is a no.
But
yeah.
I think it's a lot more common when we talk about this stuff, and we see it every day. But if you're not doing this every day like we are, I mean, it's an easy thing to see how you can make these small errors, but little things can make a big difference on your labs. So,
because you think coffee, no calories,
that's right.
right? That's
Yeah.
fasting. It's no calories. It was black. Your cortisol.
Right.
no calories, but
No.
the
And
caffeine
it has a lot of other effects on the body too. We actually, the LabCorp out here, I don't know if it's that way in every area, but we have where you can schedule them to come to you. So usually it's like an hour window. So that's what we'll usually do. And that way they just come, we don't have to go and wait. And then we also know what time they're going to be there and we can be getting work done.
You
So
guys live in a bougie town. I don't think
I think a lot of places actually do
LabCorp
it.
offers it in a number
on their
of
website.
areas. So when you go to LabCorp, if you're using LabCorp for your labs, I think they also have a contract with Quest
That's interesting.
Diagnostics, but they will come to your house and do it. And it's not
like $35 or something like that. It's nothing. It's not
That's
crazy.
magical.
Yeah.
How do I not know about this? Because me being
for you
anywhere
to
at
move.
7:30 in the morning is not pretty,
I
especially
know
with no
Reno is
caffeine.
cool, but you can move to Scottsdale. There's no prohibition. We
I
do
might.
accept.
Well, to me, time is money too.
Couple
It's like
more
if I
cold
lose an
winters.
hour or 2 hours of
$35 would be nothing.
right, exactly.
Just have them come to the house. That's great. But that's probably a big mistake I see a lot of my clients do is I'll get their labs and look at the time and I'm like, you had these done at 10:30 or 11 a.m. That doesn't help
Morning
me
cortisol.
with morning cortisol, really, especially if that's something I'm concerned about, right? And I'm trying to look at what it is and I'm like, that's not a great reading. So
Well,
those
while,
are probably
while
the
we're on
biggest things.
cortisol, do you ever have people do the saliva test so that you can see how the
If
day is
cortisol
going?
comes back crazy, or if yes, if it comes back high and it's been high on a couple of labs, because sometimes it's a fluke thing, right? I've got a funny anecdotal story about that as well. Sometimes it can be high, but if it's yes, the 4-point cortisol test is the next step. If it's high and it seems like we can't figure out the reason why, right? Like if it's somebody who, like my doctor patient, she was in her residency at the time, she wasn't sleeping, she was working 24-hour shifts, her cortisol was insane. Obviously, it's situational, right? Her stress was through the roof, she's not sleeping. But if it's somebody who's like, we can't figure out why, we do the 4-point cortisol next, the spit test, because it'll give you an idea. Maybe you don't have high cortisol all the time. Maybe your circadian rhythms basically are off, where your
Right.
cortisol's spiking at the wrong time, which of course impacts sleep, right? Or I'll have people say, I fall asleep pretty good, but it's like a cattle prod hit me at 3 a.m. I'm wide awake and then I can't fall back asleep. Sometimes that's just a matter of your cortisol, which it's supposed to spike in the morning to wake you up. But if it's spiking really, really
early.
high or way too early, it impacts your sleep.
Right.
It creates all kinds of other problems.
Yeah, I had done that years back when I was having some issues, and it's and I've seen this with other people that I've done it with. It's like you should have that hockey stick where it's starting high in the morning and then decreasing throughout the day, and then it should level out low, so then you're able to fall asleep. And mine was completely inverted, which I'm sure you've
Interesting.
seen with people before. But
Yep.
that's where
Yeah.
you wake up, you just feel so exhausted, and then it's time to go to bed, and you're just wired, and you can't fall asleep. And it's a lot of that has to do with stress and lifestyle and
Wired
things like
attack.
that. So for me, it was a lot of lifestyle
Traveling
changes.
from one side of the country to the other, like you do so often, impacts that a lot. Just
Sure. I mean, we see what happens to people with daylight savings time, which is a 1 hour change. So when you're traveling and changing your time zone 3 hours here, 3 hours there, it's tough. The body is confused.
Yeah, and there's there's they're not little things because they're habits that are hard for people to get the thing of, but there's little things that you can do that are pretty easy to try and get your circadian rhythms back in check and get those cortisol levels evened out. But they're day-to-day
Let's talk about that on a hack.
We should talk about that on a hack. 'Cause
Yeah.
there's some pretty good ones that can do that. But mine was the same way.
What was it again?
Hacks for regulating your circadian rhythms. and
Oh,
things you
okay.
can
All
do.
right. We'll do
love
that.
that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody turn into the Fusion Hack this week where we'll talk about regulating circadian rhythms. Yeah. Little in cycle commercial.
Yeah, it's not a pill. It's not a quick fix, but they require some work. But they're everybody can do them. So,
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, which blood work were we on? What were we talking about next?
So
'Cause
we
you were
talked
going
about
to the CBC.
we talked about full thyroid panel, and then we talked about CBC, comp metabolic, CBC with diff.
Well, we talked about glucose, so why don't we talk about A1C?
Yes. So those are and that's a trio too. It's kind of like the thyroid thing. You can't just get TSH, you need the whole picture. For me, I want to see fasted glucose, A1C, and fasted insulin. So those three. Fasted insulin is not one that gets usually glucose is part of the comp metabolic, and most panels will run an A1C, or most doctors will run an A1C, but very rarely fasted insulin. And fasted insulin will tell you more about somebody tracking towards insulin resistance long before glucose or A1C change. So fasted insulin is a fascinating one for me. I love that one.
So, what are you looking for when you're looking at that?
What I'm looking
highs,
at,
lows, what
when
do you
I'm
look
looking
at?
at those three markers, I look at fasted glucose first. If it's looking like oddly high to me, I look at A1C. If A1C looks really normal,
Well, and explain A1C a little bit.
A1C. So A1C is a 3-month average of your blood glucose levels. So, and that's it's kind of fascinating too, because I was like, how do they know that? Like, how can they? I was very skeptical. Like, how can they possibly know what your blood glucose has been for 3 months? Glucose attaches to hemoglobin, so it sticks to hemoglobin, and your red blood cells turn over about every 3 months. So it's really looking at how much sugar has been stuck to that hemoglobin for how long. So it really is a formula, because obviously it's not like here's all your blood cells and 90 days later you get a whole new batch. They're always kind of in a rotating cycle. So it is a formula of looking at the lifespan of your blood cell and how much glucose is stuck to that hemoglobin over a 3-month period.
And it's
kind
a
of
math thing.
Huge math
Yeah, it's a
thing.
math
Yeah,
thing.
it's not one that we
And-
would be able to go, oh yeah, this blood cell has been around for 22 days and that one's been around. That's not
And I think it's
above our pay grade.
Either it's weighted more on the last 30 days than the prior 30 days or something. But I think there's some stuff coming out now about how that formula
Could be closer to like a 45 day.
Yeah, that really is the last 30, 45 days that are more heavily weighted in that number.
And I believe that, because
yeah.
you can have an A1C done, and I've had clients that have had an A1C and it's been 2 months and nothing's changed. I mean, I see their food log, nothing's changed, and their A1C got really wonky and high within that last 2 months. But the same thing, sickness,
Yeah.
being sick, getting chronic type of sicknesses where you're like, oh, I had RSV, or I had influenza A, or I had COVID, or I had bronchitis, anything, anything that your body is struggling and in crisis, you're going to have elevated blood glucose. And so it's going to raise your A1C, but it's temporary.
And we mentioned this before, is that all labs have a context to them. If you didn't learn nothing, the story of my lipid panel and the burger and fries and all that other stuff. But when your practitioner is reviewing labs with you, just for everybody's own awareness, I mean, we're talking about optimization today, and I think that's really important. Is that as you're going through the labs, if the person that is reviewing them with you, whether it's your doctor, your PA, your physician's assistant, nurse practitioner, whoever's reviewing the labs with you, if first of all, you should have them in front of you so you can see what they're looking at as well. Secondly, if they're looking at your values and you're in the lower quadrant or the higher quadrant of a range, and they're not asking you some questions about that, especially if they have prior lab values and you're trending up or trending down, there should be some questions about that, about context. So some glucose questions were your carbs high last night? They should be asking you some questions so that you then understand the correlation between in what you're doing, what you're eating, and or if you have a sickness. So if your white blood cells are up and other markers that might affect sickness where that might affect other markers in your blood exam, your provider should be asking you questions about that and not just saying you're in range, you're good to go. If you're trending up, trending low, there should be some questions around that. If you're higher, lower in that range, some questions. And you might want to be asking those questions like, hey, doc, I was sick. Do you think that might be affecting any of my lab values? You don't have to know which specific ones, but if you do know that you've had illness and something's in one of those areas in your blood test, asking that question, I think is very helpful.
Yeah, definitely.
Your water's on the side, by the way.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's right down. There you go.
So the thing, what you were just talking about, I think that's important to note on specifically glucose. You're looking at that number first, and then if that's, you're going to look at the A1C anyway, but especially if that's a little bit higher, then you're looking for the bigger picture. What's been going on, not just today, because they could have had some extra sugar that morning, or hopefully not that morning since they're supposed to be fasted, but the day before it's still affecting, but then the A1C is going to give you the bigger picture. So
absolutely,
that's what you're saying.
and trending too, that's why I like that fasting insulin too, because sometimes I'll look at someone's glucose and it's tracking a little higher than I'd like to see it, but it's not crazy, right? And then I look at A1C and I'm like, okay, it's again creeping up there, but it's not anything crazy. It's not above 5.6. And then you get down to that fasted insulin because I'm looking at it. For me, I have a little more context, right? Because usually I'm already working with this client. I see pictures of them. I know what their body looks like. I can kind of now look at somebody and go, "Ooh, you look insulin resistant." Like you can almost see it. It has a look to it. And so I have my suspicions before we get labs of kind of what's going on. And then I'll look at those. I'm like, "No, that's really okay. That's okay." And then I look at that fasted insulin and I'm like, "Yeah, you are definitely tracking that direction." And usually elevated fasted insulin is going to tell you a lot. It's kind of like the TPO, right? Why would you wait until your TPO is so elevated that it's now destroying your thyroid? I feel like fasted insulin's the same way. Fasted insulin will rise and rise and rise and rise until it just can't do its job anymore. And then you see glucose and A1C go crazy, and then your lipid panel goes crazy, and blood pressure goes crazy, and all these other things.
And if you catch that ahead of time, you can avoid a lot of headaches and heartaches.
Absolutely. Instead of just looking at your glucose and A1C and being like, "No, I'm fine. I'm not insulin resistant yet."
Before we go too much further, though, because I'm sure people are going to want to know this, because you talked about when you're looking at somebody and they're becoming or they're insulin resistant, you can kind of tell, like, what kinds of things are you noticing when you're looking at them?
Usually the midsection, a lot of, and it's part of the fun peri and postmenopausal situation, as well as estrogen declines. Like I said in the last episode, estrogen is a beautiful glucose stabilizer. So you lose that stabilizer and all of a sudden your glucose starts going up. And I think it's why, you look at the symptoms of perimenopause and people are like, "Oh yeah, I went through menopause and I gained 10 pounds around my middle." Well, why? There isn't some magic button that says, "Oh, you're 45. We're going to start holding your weight there." Why are you starting to carry weight right there? And it's insulin resistance, right? It's our bodies are no longer able to do what they're supposed to do with the glucose in our bloodstream. So it just starts packing it wherever it can put it. The dangerous thing is it's not visceral fat. It's around your organs.
It's not subcutaneous.
It's visceral. Yes. It's not the subcutaneous, ugly, cellulite, chub that we don't like. It's the dangerous fat that's packing around your organs, and it starts so that expands your midsection, right? So that's usually where I can look at somebody and go, "Oh, yeah."
Right. And the risk of heart issues, other issues that are
cascade, the whole metabolic syndrome, that syndrome X, all the components that go with that. But usually that's where I'll start to see it, that and just puffiness, just starting, those women, they send me pictures first thing in the morning. And I'm like, yeah, they're looking puffy. They're looking like they're inflamed, like they're holding a lot of inflammation and mostly carrying all their weight around their midsection and in their flanks.
Right. So. And I think especially when they haven't maybe in the past.
Exactly. Historically haven't. Because I'll say, "Oh, I'm gaining weight. I've gained 10 pounds in the last year and I can't get it off. And I've never had this problem before." I'm like, "Where are you holding that weight?" If I'm even on a consult call, where is it? "Oh, it's all going around my middle. It's all in my midsection." I'm like, Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Interested in changing your life or stepping on stage? Join FitBody Fusion today.
Experience the FitBody Fusion difference with tools, knowledge, and community support to reach your healthy and sustainable lifestyle.
We guide thousands on their fitness journeys, from seasoned athletes to those who are simply seeking a healthier life.
Our expert coaches provide personalized plans and unwavering support, empowering you to thrive.
FitBody Fusion is more than just training. It's a community. We understand the challenges of solo fitness journeys, which is why we foster a supportive environment where members encourage and motivate each other.
Join the FitBody Fusion community today and unlock your full potential.
Head to fitbodyfusion.com to sign up for a free consultation.
And do it today.
Well, I think it's interesting because I know for a while, like there were a lot of companies that were advertising, oh, this product is going to get rid of that belly fat, that midsection. This one, it's your cortisol. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
it's interesting, like, because I think that's where, to me, I started seeing people vilify cortisol so much, which, you know, there's all these hormones have their roles and their places, and it's about
they do.
being the right amount in the right time. But I just think it's so interesting that, you know, a lot of times we want to know what that single solitary answer is, and there's multiple factors at play.
Multiple factors. That's a perfect example too. People say cortisol belly. Cortisol belly is a very real thing. It's all coming from the exact same place. It's all glucose. Either your glucose is elevated because now your hormones have tanked out and so your estrogen isn't helping you with that glucose, or your cortisol is elevated so your liver's just cranking out glucose. Either way, it's glucose. It's a glucose belly, really. It's not really a menopause belly. It's not a cortisol belly. It's a glucose. It's an insulin resistant belly. But it just, depending on what your issue is, it's like, oh, that's cortisol will make you fat around the middle. Yeah, sure will, because it drives up your glucose.
Well, then people will go and take a supplement or take something to tank their cortisol, and now their energy
You don't
is
want to go.
declined, and then they're not addressing the problem.
Correct. It's a Band-Aid. They're slapping a Band-Aid on, which is, you know, when I look at, that's a whole nother category, but when I look at people with like adrenal issues, elevated cortisol is actually much easier to deal with. I mean, because if you can get somebody chilled out before their adrenals crash, when somebody's in stage 3, 4 adrenal fatigue, it's a whole nother ballgame, because getting your adrenals back up to baseline is really, really hard. Getting somebody to calm down so that their cortisol comes down is a lot easier than trying to get them your adrenals back online.
Yeah.
Because when they give up, they give up.
I feel like this goes down like a whole other rabbit
It
hole.
does.
But also though too, you know, thinking about and maybe this is another hack, but you know, a lot of times people learn about or hear about a supplement and they're like, oh, I need that. I've got that. And a lot of them are amazing, great products, but if they're not used in the right situation, you know, like with an adrenal support, I've seen people, you know, they go take an adrenal support that maybe that brings down their cortisol levels, but in reality, they were already in adrenal fatigue. What they needed was some support to
bring it
help.
back. Yeah.
So then they're actually
labs done.
doing
Yes.
more wrong. And it's not that it's a bad product for someone else that might have been perfect. But
yeah,
this
and
is
it
where
might have
not
been
having the
great for them 6 months ago when things were on the way up. But you're right. By that time, they maybe are already on the other end of it, and they're making things worse by
Right.
suppressing it.
Or we see people with DIM.
Yes.
You know.
Perfect example. Taking DIM, which is a great supplement if you are estrogen dominant. But if you don't have any estrogen, it's just dampening down even further and making things worse.
Right. And a lot of the supplements that are advertised for pre or menopause have DIM.
Right. Because yes, as we talked about in the last episode, right? When you're perimenopause, you're probably becoming relatively estrogen dominant. Doesn't mean you're estrogen dominant. Doesn't mean that you need to suppress your estrogen. You probably need to bring up your progesterone. DIM is just going to push this down, and now you're tanked out on both at the bottom. So
Right.
I think that's a perfect, I love that analogy about the supplements, right? Because you're right. Like, okay, I've gained weight around my middle. I see this commercial. It says, take berberine. It's your cortisol. That's what's causing all that weight around your middle. It's going to fix it. When in reality, there's nothing wrong with your cortisol and your perimenopausal. They're different issues. It's the same weight. They're being caused by different issues, right? So getting
Right.
root cause.
Right. You
Root
treat the wrong
cause.
thing and you could make it worse.
Make it worse. Yeah.
So-
yeah, now you're perimenopausal and you're trashing your adrenals. Just adding fuel to the fire and you don't even know it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And you're wasting your money too, because a lot of these supplements are not cheap. So,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
find out first.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go. What's next? Oh, we didn't finish So did we finish the A1C glucose?
I think we did.
Insulin, yes.
Yep. Fasted
Kind of how those work
glucose.
together.
Yep. Fasted glucose, A1C, insulin.
And I just want to mention one thing when we talked about fasted insulin, just so everybody understands the mechanism there, is that if you are fasted and your insulin is elevated, that's no good.
Correct.
I mean, your insulin should be released when you eat, not when you're fasted. So that's why
That's why fasted's important.
That's why it becomes
Yeah.
such an important marker
Absolutely.
to look at.
Yeah. If it's elevated when you're fasted, imagine where it is when you're eating.
Well, while we're on this subject, before we change, I know a lot of people are starting to wear the continuous glucose monitors.
Love CGM.
So talk about the CGM.
So CGM, continuous glucose monitor, beautiful product. I'm dying. I'm excited for the day, excited and optimistic for the day when they're, $50 and everybody could wear one, because I think everybody could benefit from wearing one, even if you did it for just 3 months, because it gives you such incredible insight into what's going on in your body, how your body's processing food, because everybody's really, really different, right? Like you could maybe eat 300 grams of carbs a day and your glucose monitor would tell you your levels are absolutely beautiful. If I did that, mine would be through the roof and I would be heading towards type 2 in a heartbeat, right? Like everybody's metabolism's different, everybody's body's different. So continuous glucose monitors, are wonderful because they give you a really in real time picture. We all love data, right? So we're all wearing whoops and watches and everything else because we love data. CGMs tell you exactly what your blood glucose levels are doing in response to food, in response to stress. Some of my ladies that wear them that are very stressed out are learning a lot about themselves. Like it is crazy what my glucose will do after a meeting, a really stressful meeting where everybody's yelling and screaming at each other. They've had no food. And I've got a lady, she'll spike to 150, 160.
Wow.
She's on full keto. She has no carbs going into her body at all.
Wow.
And she will spike above 140 from stress, just from a meeting.
Wow.
That says a lot.
Yeah, because she's like, I can't figure out my readings. I'm doing everything right. She's following full keto. And I'm like, it's coming from your liver. That's craziness. Yeah, and that's cortisol. It goes back. She's like, her cortisol's spiking, or her liver's cranking out glucose, and her levels are spiking. And so she's getting really, really good at managing it, right? Because you don't know what you don't know. So if you have the data, you can start like figuring out a roadmap for how to get it somewhere better.
That's a great example too, because it's like, because you go down the process of elimination until you figure out. So you pull out the dietary, and then it's like, okay, then the answer is, and then
Right.
then getting to see when.
Yes.
Yeah.
What causes it? Lack of sleep. She'll wake up with fasted glucose of 110 if she has a bad night's sleep. She's very, very sensitive to stress. Like stress is driving her cortisol through the roof, and then because she's in menopause, also her blood glucose goes crazy. So
I think what that highlights too is that there is no magic pill. Like certainly, like we're talking about HRT and the benefits are amazing. Like it does feel like magic to some extent. And we do have to pair that with lifestyle. Like it's not just one. I mean, one side of the coin will give you some benefits, and you also have to address the lifestyle things that are feeding into.
I think the lifestyle has to be the foundation.
Yes.
It absolutely has to be the foundation. Otherwise you're trying to balance a ball and a needle, right? It's not going to work.
Right.
So, yes, lifestyle, which is the beauty of having a coach, right? Like having a coach to walk you through some of this. And I mean, the littlest things, the importance of fiber when your estrogen's declining and your glucose is going crazy, how important fiber is. I think people think fiber is all about like, oh, I'm going to the bathroom, fine, I don't need fiber. Like, yes, fiber does lots of beautiful things in your body, but really one of the great things it does is slows down the absorption of glucose into your bloodstream, right? So high fiber food is critical, and that's a lifestyle thing, right? You can have all the HRT in the world, and you can have a glucose monitor, and you can do all these things, and if you're still eating garbage every day, you're not going to feel better. Nothing's going to change.
Well, and the cool thing about getting those high fiber foods is it's usually paired with all the other great things, the vitamins, the minerals, the phytonutrients. Yes. I mean, usually the foods that are higher in fiber have all the other great things in them too. So when
Absolutely.
I've seen that. I've gotten people where I've looked at their food log and their fiber is like barely just non-existent.
Painful to see. Yeah. 5 to 7 grams a day. You're like, oh my gosh.
How are you ever going to the bathroom?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's huge. And those are the little things that are kind of fun with I can work with clients that really hate tracking, or they've never done it before, and it seems so overwhelming for them, right? And they're just like, this is so much, make sure my carbs and my fats and everything's right. I said, don't worry about any of that right now. I call them my non-negotiables. Let's hit the non-negotiables. 100 grams of protein a day, non-negotiable. 25 grams of fiber minimum, non-negotiable. Let's just start there. Like, get that mastered. By the time they've mastered that, usually their calories are in a pretty good place. And to get 25 grams of fiber in, you're eating enough healthy fats and carbs that all your other numbers are starting to come in line, right? Like, if you just focus on those two markers, everything else starts to fall in place.
Right.
Honestly.
You can't eat as much processed food if
You
you want to get
can't.
enough fiber in,
You
so
can't
that
do it. Yeah.
forces you to naturally make better choices. I love
right?
that.
Right. And I mean, 25 grams of fiber is either a whole lot of vegetables or a whole lot of seeds, nuts, avocados, things that are all great for us that are going to be
Oats,
helping us hit
grains,
our, yes.
I mean, there's a lot that's what I think is when people think fibers, I think some people just think broccoli, Brussels sprouts, or whatever. And it's like there are so many foods that can get you. Veggies are definitely a staple. I think you got to have that, but there are other choices that you can make.
Absolutely. Basil seeds.
Basil seeds.
I'm going to start I wish I could be a spokesperson for basil seeds because I didn't even know what they were. I learned about them probably 6 months ago. And I'm like, how do we not all know about these? They're amazing. Like, they're little nutrient powerhouses. There's like 15 grams of fiber in 2 tablespoons.
Wow.
Do you do them like the chia seeds where you
They're
soak them?
exactly like chia seeds. They fluff up in water. They have less fat and higher protein than chia seeds. So bang for your buck, but they act just like chia seeds. I put them in my shakes. You can put them in protein pancakes. You can mix them in your yogurt. You can put them in your oats. You can make chia seed pudding, protein puddings. I tell people to put them in mason jars and overnight them and add some berries in the morning. And it's literally like 20 grams of fiber for breakfast.
I love that.
They're amazing. I'm like, how do we not all know about basil seeds?
And when you talk about CGMs, by the way, is there a favorite brand that you have for basil seeds?
For Zen basil.
Okay, I just pulled it up on Amazon. So
Zen basil.
That's the first thing. If you go to Amazon and just put in basil seeds,
Does it pop up?
It does. Zen basil came up. And then I know for CGMs or continuous glucose monitors, you like the Stello brand. You like the Libra,
really,
maybe DEXA.
When I think about it, so it's a double-edged sword here because I love the Freestyle Libra because if you're using that one or the Dexcom.
DEXA, yeah, I think
It's called Dexcom, but I don't know which line it is.
It is.
If people
pulled it up.
if people are using that one, they can invite me.
The Dexcom G7.
That's the one, the G7, and the Freestyle Libre. They can invite me to view their data, and I can see in real time. I can pull up on my phone a couple of clients right now and show you what their blood glucose is doing right now. So it's cool because I'll get alerts on my phone like, oh, they just spiked above 140 or they just went hypoglycemic at 2 o'clock in the morning kind of thing. So I get real time data too, which I love, but they're more expensive. So it's more expensive for the client. The Stello is a really cool one, and oddly, it's a Dexcom product, but they can't invite me to see their information.
So that's the lesser expensive one,
It's
right?
less expensive. So it's like $99 a month, and you don't have to sign up for a long subscription. So you can buy a 1 month monitor, a 2 month, a 3 month, and they'll send you like 3, right? So if you spend $300, you've got 3 months worth of data coming your way. So I like that one from a cost effective standpoint. Levels but that's a whole nother can of worms, but Levels is kind of a cool company, and CGMs, but theirs comes with almost like an online coach that talks you through what's going on your desk.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's actually really cool. There's some really good investors in it. Casey Means, she's a backer on that, but I really like Levels. But if you're working with the coach, it's kind of your coach's job too. I mean, it's like if you don't have a coach and you want to start wearing them, I would think Levels would be kind of a cool way to go because you get more data, but it's more expensive and it's a subscription.
Right.
Because you're paying for
But like you said, if somebody doesn't have a coach and they don't know really what the data means, then
Levels would be amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it was like when we talked to Joanna about the GI map, because I know she was saying, a lot of people are charging less for it, but it doesn't come with the review. And if you don't have the review and all you have is the information, it's pretty complex.
Oh,
so,
absolutely.
if you're not familiar with it, it's literally going to be like Greek.
Yes.
Unless you speak Greek.
Exactly. And then you're like, I have the data, but I don't know how to read it. Yeah.
Right.
I need to interrupt a little bit. I'm sorry, because we're actually over time. So
we knew this was going to happen because there's so much to talk about.
But before I want to make sure we did. So we talked about full thyroid and what that means. It's more than just TSH.
Yes.
So if you're asking that just of your provider, make sure when you say full thyroid, ask them, okay, so you're going to run a full thyroid, right? Yes. Tell me what's in that. If they just say TSH, that is not a full thyroid.
Or TSH and T4 sometimes is what they'll do. That's not enough.
What I do for my clients that I think is helpful is I send them a list. And I say, take this with you to your doctor. There's a pretty good chance they may not run all of these for you.
But
they
ask.
may say, but yes, hand them this and say, this is everything I would love to, I would like data on, or I'd like to see. And it does show full thyroid, TSH, T4, T3.
And we do the same thing.
Yeah.
Right, so total and free.
Yep.
Then also the TPO.
Yep. And TPO for thyroid, reverse T3 if I'm suspicious.
We talked about the
High
comprehensive
cortisol.
metabolic panel. We talked about fasted glucose, A1C, fasted insulin. We talked about cortisol, and the nugget on that is make sure that his morning cortisol should be in the morning.
Like
as
first thing,
close as you
yeah.
can to the first in the morning as you can to
Yeah.
get your baseline cortisol. We talked about TPO relative to the thyroid panel.
CRP is the other one.
Yeah, what we didn't
CRP,
talk
I
about
like.
before we talk about CRP, full hormone panel.
Full hormone panel, yes.
That's not just estradiol. That's not just progesterone.
Not just
It's not just testosterone. It's free testosterone,
Correct.
which is also
So
very important.
4,
And
yeah.
I like to see the sex hormone binding globulin
Yes,
as well
me
as
too.
HBG,
Yes, for
just
sure.
to see, because that can be
And DHEA, kind of those 5.
and,
Right.
Yeah, DHEA, and I'm glad you said that. And I will tell you the reason why we like to. And I'm not going to speak for Ann and Jamie, but I think we'll all align on
We
this.
talk
is
enough,
that
we know.
We talk enough. The reason that we like to see those values is those values in and of themselves may not be significant, but looking at those values relative to the other values, it's just like what you talked about, relative versus frank estrogen dominance.
Yes.
It's these values bear a relationship with each other, and so when you're running a full sex hormone panel, if you don't have the full picture, then you're going to have questions. And I mean, this happens all the time. Is I'll be looking at labs, and they'll be, okay, I got this lab, but man, I don't have this.
like, oh, I wish I had, yeah.
Oh man, I got glucose, but I don't have
you
A1C.
don't want to piecemeal
And
because
that's right.
you don't want to piecemeal it because we do fluctuate. You want all of them at the same time.
Right.
Yes.
Otherwise, like if you go in, oh, my estrogen, but I don't know my progesterone, then you go back in, you do that, then you need to just do the
All
whole
at the
thing.
same time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's important and I think the last one that we just did not cover yet was the CRP, C-reactive protein. So
Yeah,
talk about that.
I really like that one. And it's a scary one for people because it's called C-reactive protein. And if you Google it, it basically says it's this marker of cardio.
It's a predictor of heart attack.
It's very scary
yeah.
to read, right? And it's a huge spectrum, but really it's an inflammation marker. It tells you a lot. Inflammation, we could do a 2-part segment on just inflammation and the importance of the
Put that down. We're doing that next time.
the significance of the havoc that inflammation causes in the body. And I'm not talking like, oh, I'm like, I can't get my ring off because I'm holding water. I'm talking like cellular inflammation, right? So C-reactive protein is a really good marker of kind of cellular inflammation. And it just tells me a lot about what's going on with somebody metabolically. It usually goes pretty hand in hand with somebody's other metabolic markers being off, right? Like fasted insulin's high, glucose is high, their CRP is usually high. But when the body's inflamed and your cells are inflamed, it will not respond. So a lot of your non-responders that are like, why isn't this person dropping? Nothing works, nothing they try works. And the rest of their labs look really, really good. I have one client that's this way. Her labs are beautiful. Her CRP is crazy.
Wow.
She's very inflamed. We just can't I don't know what's driving it. So
Have you run a full lipid profile too?
yeah, her
Okay.
lipids are fine.
Huh.
It's she's my outlier. Like she's like, I know this is how I work. Like none of her labs make sense.
The importance of that is exactly what you say. There are outliers in this thing, in the system, and that's why it's so important to look at this holistically, but also to recognize that everybody's different. So there's no one. When we talk about being personally optimized, and I love that we've kind of gone with that phrasing, is that it is really about your levels and
Where
what's
do
going
you
on
feel
with
best?
you.
Yes.
So where do you feel best? And I do hope that the labs get more evolved in providing that history, because if you're going to if I'm going to LabCorp, like they may show my last 2 studies, I've seen them show 3. Man, I've been going to LabCorp for years. I would love to have that full picture from them, and I can't believe technology isn't there. I believe it's there,
has
but
to be there.
it's there. And
Well, the data's there. If the data's there, you can put it into a report. Yeah.
My challenge to all you blood lab draws is give it if we've been going to you for a period of time, give us that history, because the value is significant, but the history or the trending of that value becomes even more significant. It's like
Right.
I know we're all big fans of Aura rings and the
Whoop
data that you
straps.
get, or the
Yeah,
Whoop, or is
yeah,
that the Whoop?
yeah, it's a
Okay.
Whoop, yeah.
So I like saying Whoop.
Whoop. I say whoop too. Whoop.
Okay.
Whoop,
There it
man.
is.
Whoop.
There it is. But the cool part about that is seeing the data over time. It's the
Correct.
difference between, as we were talking about CGMs, I still do the finger prick method for just
I do
periods
too,
of time, because I just like to know. And this great is that I can create that historical data, but it's not going to be as much as or as rich as what you're going to get from a CGM for that 3 month.
And it's just harder to be compliant,
Right.
right? You slap that on and it's on all
Right.
the time. Even I prick my finger too, and I learned I would be like, gosh dang it, I forgot to pay attention to the clock, and now I'm 3 hours postprandial, and
Yep.
it's not going to be a good reading. So you have to be a little more diligent and have the time. Like if you've got someone who's a nurse, they can't stop every hour after eating and prick their finger. So CGMs are just definitely more convenient, but it is more long term.
It is,
But
and
they're
we
awesome.
talked about labs. These are what we generally look at. There are other values, ferritin, iron, that I know are big players
That's a
in,
big
in
one,
what we do.
too.
So, but those come up in the CMPs. So, when we talk about labs, there are other advanced labs, like for example, a full lipid profile
Yes.
is a much more comprehensive panel that is a good idea to run at least once a year, in my opinion. But there are other panels that you can run more discreetly, or depending
Yeah.
on what's going on.
You can dig deeper,
yeah,
right? If
yeah.
you see something that you're like, this is wonky and it's not the whole picture, yes, there's definitely, you can go down a whole ANA autoimmune.
Yeah, I was going
Right.
to ask if you
rabbit hole
typically have
to-
people look at those markers
if they
for
do.
autoimmune.
And obviously, I'm not a medical professional. None of us are. And so I think for me, what is helpful for me is when I see something crazy, I'll be like, this is concerning.
Inquire further.
Go talk to your doctor about it and show them these labs and dig a little bit deeper. Because I mean, I'm not a doctor, but when I'm looking at things and I'm like, everything on here is telling me you got another autoimmune issue, something else is going on. I can order ANAs. I don't know how to read those properly. I don't know enough about figuring all that out, but I know if somebody's has all the symptoms and they're popping pretty high on a TPO and their CPR, their C-reactive protein is high and they're inflamed, something's going on.
Right.
Right. Like,
Well, and I see that ignored sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
doctor, oh, you're good, and that's where that's that advocating that we kind of circle back to is especially if you're symptomatic and things, are
symptomatic, biggest
yeah.
thing.
Well,
How do you feel?
Yeah. And that goes into, I think we talked about this in the first episode, is that, a diagnostician on an x-ray may say, or I see this a lot on MRIs where it says there's a shadow here, an artifact here, recommend further clinical correlation to that. And that's really what we're suggesting, is that not from a medical professional point of view, but just from a common sense point of view, is that if the study is telling you basically it's incomplete, it can't test for what you may be feeling, then additional studies are recommended and should be suggested. And that's something you may need to drive with your healthcare providers, that, okay, everything came up great on my labs, I still feel like crap. What other tests can we run? Because a lot of diagnostics in medicine is elimination of things.
Absolutely.
And so it's like the Sherlock Holmes thing. When we've eliminated all the possibilities, then the impossible must be true. And that is what a lot of medicine is. I wrote something down on this episode that I wanted to share, because I was just thinking about the foundational pillars. And I think what we've talked about here are 5 of them, which is lifestyle, supplements, hormones, nutrition, and labs. And I think that kind of encompasses the ecosystem of what we're talking about here. Lifestyle is more than is not, some people say, well, isn't lifestyle nutrition? No. Lifestyle is, are you in a high stress job? Where do you live? Do you live in a city that's like, do you live in a city in California that gets a lot of smog?
How much sleep do you
how much
get?
sleep, right? All those factors, environmental factors.
Yeah.
That really gets into the epigenetics of how your genes, not just your genes, but how your genes express. Supplements, I think we've talked about. Hormones, we've talked about. Nutrition, whole food focus. I mean, if there's, we do a couple coaches calls a week, and if I had a dime, I don't even think I need a dime. If I had a penny for every time you said whole food, I'd be rich, because it is just that it's kind of the core of this is highly processed foods with binders, fillers in them. They are affecting your metabolism.
Absolutely.
And they are affecting your blood work. And then labs, that lab is the check on all those things. So it comes out to a 5-sided pentagram, whatever you want to call it, but
Exactly,
pentagon.
yeah.
But those really are the foundational elements I think that we've talked about here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And our job as coaches is to help people look at all of that
Yes.
and then
Take a holistic approach.
take a holistic approach, educate,
Yes.
and then advocate.
Educate and advocate. I think that's the biggest thing, right? Are people like, oh, are you going to read my labs? I'm like, well, I'm going to tell you what I see. And I think for me, it helps me coach, but it also helps me guide them, right? Because if
Right.
somebody goes to just their regular doctor and gets a hormone panel and it comes back and I can see on their labs, everything's within range, but I know darn well things are declining. They're relatively estrogen dominant. Their testosterone's. I can say you really need to find a hormone specialist. You need to find an HRT specialist to start this process now before you fall off the cliff. Like start this process now. I can just help guide them to somebody that can truly, here's Joanna's number. Call her. She can help you do this. Or there's lots of them out there. But I think that's a big piece of it, right? Like just helping somebody along the way a little bit.
And there are lots of them out there. And I will say, just like we talked in episode 1, is that if your doctor's not giving you the answers that you want, maybe time to go get a new doctor. Not all hormone replacement clinics are created equal.
No.
And so you got to be careful of the mills that are just there to prescribe hormones and that's it. What I would say to me is the distinguishing point is that if your hormone clinic is not talking about holistic things, supplementation, nutrition, lifestyle changes along with your hormones, then you're only going to get part of the picture.
Right.
So
it's kind of like that. I don't even know who said it, but if you have a doctor writing you a prescription without asking you about your lifestyle factors, you don't have a healthcare professional, you have a drug dealer.
There you go. Wow, that's a good.
It's kind of the same with a hormone clinic, right? If
Yeah.
they're not asking you all the questions, and they're not, and that's part, again, coaches, we can help guide, right? We've done enough homework to be like, this one I know enough to know this is a good one and this is a good one. And what's the difference between someone who's going to give you creams versus injection versus pellets? Which I'm not a fan of, but there's
Not a
None
fan
of us
either.
are.
not a fan of those pellets. I get clients all the time, I'm on the pellet. I'm like, oh,
It's convenient, but there's. Well, let's talk like before we
if
start.
we
What
have
are
a
the
second,
ups and downsides? Yeah.
the best
So
way
wait, I'm sorry. Let's baseline this. So
Like, what is it? What are we talking
so
about?
we're talking about testosterone pellets.
No, we're talking
or-
about hormone.
hormone
HRT
pellets.
A lot of
Okay,
people are doing
That's true.
estrogen.
That's
Like
right.
it's not
Okay.
just testosterone.
estrogen
You're right.
and testosterone combined in those pellets, or it could just be the testosterone. But it's a pellet. I think about the Depo-Provera days where you got your birth
Some
control
people still do those.
stuck in your arm for 3 months or say a year or however long those things lasted. It seemed nutty to me, but it's kind of the same thing. So they insert a pellet in your butt, and it's kind of time. It's
Not in
supposed
your
to.
butt.
in your glute.
Let's be clear.
In
It's
your,
not
in
like
your gluteus,
It
okay?
doesn't
Yes,
actually-
it's not.
it's not a suppository.
It's not a suppository.
It's not a
It's not going through the outdoor. Okay.
It is being injected through your. Oh my
muscle.
God!
And
That was a good
no, that was
clarification.
brilliant. That was brilliant.
That was awesome.
I love that.
Doesn't literally go in your butt. No.
Well,
It-
Jamie's answer to everything whenever anything's lost in our house.
in my butt.
Well, because he'll ask me without looking at it. I'm like, he's like, where's my keys in your butt?
In your butt.
Anyway.
And now Drew's adopted that now, so I got 2 of them. It's like they're in stereo.
Yes.
I'll say, "Hey, where's this, honey?" And then both of them like in stereo. In your butt.
I always say in my butt. I don't know why I say that. But I say it to my husband too. I'm like, I don't know my butt.
It's the old Eddie Murphy song, and I know the people
My butt,
listening.
my butt. Yeah. Dating ourselves again.
Yes, to search Eddie Murphy and the butt song, and you'll
there you go.
understand.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the pellets.
So
yeah.
the pellet. So the pellet, yeah, it's inserted into your skin and your glute, and it's a continuous release of hormones. Supposed to be, right? The way when I try and explain to clients who have them, I'm like, here's my problem with them. Here's why I don't like them. It goes in, you get this huge surge, and I'll say to my clients, this is what I hear. Oh, I'm just feeling really sluggish. I'm just down. I'm like 2 weeks away from my next pellet. I just need to get through the next 2 weeks. And then they get their pellet. Oh my gosh, I feel amazing. I'm like, you're intentionally putting yourself back on the perimenopause roller coaster. You're on a roller coaster. You get your pellet, your levels are here and you feel really, really good. And then they decline. And now you feel like garbage, but you've got a few more weeks. And then we're trying to get off the roller coaster and we're trying to get here, right? We want to be on a nice, flat, rolling down the highway kind of a program, not doing
consistency and
that microphone.
right. You want the consistency.
You want
Well, the other
consistency.
issue though too is if they put it in and there's a
Scar-
dosage. What if it's
Oh,
the wrong dosage?
Right.
What if
You're-
it's too little
you're
or
out of
too
luck
much
for 3 months?
Right.
Yeah. And then doctors will say, well, and your next pellet will adjust it. So for the next 3 months,
That's a long time.
That's a very, very long time. Not to mention you build up scar tissue of having to get them done. You can't work out for 3 days after you get it. I'm like, this doesn't sound like a great program to me. Like I want things I can control, right? And I think when you get really in tune with your body, that's kind of the cool thing. I mean, I can reach out to my hormone person and be like, I think my progesterone needs to be adjusted, or I think I need one more unit of estrogen, and we'll draw labs, and I'm usually right, but it's that easy to adjust it. Like, okay, do my next injection in 3 days, I can fix it, not 3 months.
Right.
So
And I know sometimes people are afraid of the injections, but it's really, I mean, it's a very small subcutaneous.
it's a piece of cake.
It's not.
I'm
If you've never done it, because I remember I was scared at first.
I was terrified.
Yes.
Terrified.
And the people that have, there's a stigma around, the injectables or whatever, but in reality, it's the
Administering,
most
yeah.
effective in my opinion.
I think they are too. I think it's the most effective. I did the creams forever, and there's just I'm not very good at being compliant with. There's some downsides to that too, right? It works best on nice, clean skin that maybe just been showered where your pores are open. That is not my life. I'm
Right.
like, oh, I forgot to do it, and I called it my hormone frosting. I'm slapping it on.
Well,
I'm not letting it dry enough. I'm
Right.
getting it all over the place.
Well,
I'm
and you
like,
want to be careful not to
I-
get it on your
I know,
spouse or
which
your
I'm sure I
animals
did.
or,
yeah, yeah. I was not the right candidate for that because I'm too spastic. But I love the injections because it's easy, right? It just goes in. But yeah,
But people can try different things and see what works for them.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
some
at the end of the
orals,
day,
some
yeah.
creams, some
Yes.
injections. It's just for me. I agree with you. With the pellets is my least favorite, just because you're committed for 3 months, and I don't
Yes.
like that
The
roller
spikes.
coaster that you talked about. It's
Yeah.
like almost purposefully throwing yourself on,
yeah, on a roller coaster.
and
ride.
the whole purpose is to
Get off the roller coaster.
Yes.
Try to get off it, not get on a new one.
yes, not making it worse. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, we good?
I think we're good. That was great. I'm glad that came up.
We did not really cover preparing for your lab review as much as I wanted to. So we'll cover that in a fusion hack. Okay.
Okay.
Because we did talk about hydrating, but we didn't talk about some of the other things about working out, about supplements to avoid.
And now you're telling everything.
I know. Well, I'm teasing it. Come on, I'm teasing it. Is that teasing? Maybe I'm giving them. Okay.
can
Anyway,
do the hack.
Anne, tell people how to get a hold of you.
You can get a hold of me by going to the FitBody Fusion website, requesting a consult, using the drop down, choosing me for your consult coach, or you can find me through my social media at ann.lemus_IFBB Pro.
And you do both lifestyle and competition coaching.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And sometimes there's the flip flop back and forth
Yeah.
between the two, like we
Yeah.
talked about too,
Really,
which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, the distinction between the two is actually kind of small, which I think is cool.
Yeah. So what is your checkout word?
My checkout word is about energized.
Ooh, I like that.
You know,
Energized by all
I'm
this
hungry. My checkout word is
conversation.
hungry.
Right, I'm a little hungry.
You know what I wrote on here is I wrote check out labs, and then I realized no, it should have been words. So anyway, I love that, and these last 2 episodes have been just fantastic and so informative. I said it in the first episode of how inspired I am by you, and I'm going to add one other thing: is we didn't really get in to your competition history. I was there during a lot of those, and the passion that you pursue your knowledge is really indicative of what I saw you as a competitor and how I see you as a competitor. So if you're thinking about Ann Lemus as your coach, I can't advocate enough for her, because this woman, I mean, she got so close so many times. And I mean, I was there, Frankie was there, your husband, and
Yes.
and I there is so funny that your
bridesmaid here.
face is showing up in my vivid memories of things but you always kept going for it, and there's no quit inside of you, and that I've seen that evidenced by you on so many different levels, responding to injury, responding to your competition, falling off the cliff without your HRT parachute, and then still finding that reserve chute that you could pull out and rescue yourself. You're an embodiment of what is that 5-pointed star that we talked about for a healthy life, for an optimal life.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we
And do you know
appreciate
how much faster I would have gotten that card had I been an advocate of whole food sooner? I think about the things I was putting in my body during some of those preps and just like, what in the world was I doing? So you don't know what you don't know.
If you don't know a better way, that you just know the way you know. So
Well, I think we all got really excited about macros, and then we had to,
Reel it in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a balance. There's a balance to everything in life.
Yes. Macros within reason.
Yes.
Yes.
all right, so let's B it out then. 3 Bs.
Are you going to?
That's right. But I
you gonna do your
I
thing?
gotta figure out. Well, so we have the 5 things that we talked about, but there's a 6th thing. So we have lifestyle, supplements, hormones, nutrition, labs, and then number 6 is to like, comment, subscribe, and leave your review, so that we can provide you content like this, which truly is just a gift to be able to bring you people like Ann. And it's your comments, your support of the channel that really help us do that. So please help us help you. And remember the 3 Bs.
Be good to yourself.
Be good to each other.
And be safe.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in to FitBody Lifestyle. We hope today's episode has left you feeling motivated and equipped to tackle your fitness goals, business challenges, and the daily dance of life. Remember to value progress over perfection. Life's tough enough alone. Find the chosen family around you to help you along the way.
If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite streaming platform. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at FitBody Fusion.